Happy late evening slash early morning, YouTube dingleberries. I'm back for another report on stuff I've been up to. Uh, I'll get into it because I let more stuff build up than I thought I would again, and then of course I have no space on my phone. So we'll dive right into this. First up, a book, third and final book in the Max Tilt series called Enter the Core. In this third installment, Max and his cousin, oh god, what's her name again? Alex, yeah, are bitter because their new friend Bitsy got away with the items from the serum that healed Max's mother, this miracle substance that Jules Verne discovered, and they're pissed that they let her get into their confidence and abscond with this serum, and so they don't know what to do. They don't know where she's gone, so they go and visit her mom, who is in jail, and she says, well, where do you think Bitsy will go? She'll go try and bring her father, of course, who is the vile Spencer Niemand, who the kids were opposed against in the first book, who was the arch villain of that, and who is kind of the arch villain of the whole series, even though he didn't factor in much into the second book. So they go to Massachusetts, where he is in jail himself, and just before they get there, there's a prison break. Bitsy's already been there. She springs her father. They get away, and but along the way they figure out some clues, which leads them to a puzzle on the back of a painting of Jules Verne that Max has hanging in his family's living room. And from there, they discover they have to go to Iceland and kind of retrace some of the story of Journey to the Center of the Earth. And but Bitsy and Spencer already have a head start, so they have to chase them down, stop them from propagating this miracle cure, as they find out some other information about it, that it's not quite ready for that stage. And yeah, it's just this big rollicking adventure to finish off the series. Like I said before, I love it when an author finds a way to bring classic books back to life in a new and different kind of way, kind of like Rick Riordan did with all the Greek mythology and all the other mythology that he's done as well. This is kind of, brings back some old stories and stuff like that. So really enjoyed that series. It's short 3 books, but definitely worth the read. But this guy, Peter Larangis, he's got tons of series. Like, I've read a couple of them so far, but he's got way more books than that, and now I'm like, oh, now I got to get into all those. So it is what it is. Next up, finally got around to watching Alita Battle Angel, and it is fantastic. I didn't realize it was based on some manga books from the 90s, I guess. But the story is, it's the year 2563, 300 years after an event known as the Fall, which was this massive war that basically reshaped Earth as we know it. And as the movie opens up, we witness this older gentleman named Dr. Ido searching through a scrap pile that is directly beneath this kind of floating city. And in it, he discovers the head and kind of spinal column of a cyborg. And so he is surprised that it's still functioning, so he takes it back to his shop and gives it a body, and it comes back to life, and it's a female who he names Alita, but she has no memories of her past life. So he kind of takes her under his wing and is very protective of her, and introduces her to this world, and but tells her to be very careful. And along the way, she meets a boy named Hugo, who is an associate of Dr. Ido's, and starts to fall for him, even though she's a cyborg. He's a human. They have feelings for each other, and he shows her more and more of the city, and introduces her to a violent sport called motorball, which is like basically roller derby with a ball and cyborgs, and it's massive beatdowns. As the story unfolds, she witnesses Dr. Ido a couple of nights coming back late, and he's covered in blood. So she believes he's up to something, and there's been murders in the city, so she believes he's up to something nefarious. So she goes out and follows him one night, and when he is confronted by 3 well trained in the arts of dealing death cyborgs, she suddenly defends him and jumps into this comfortable routine of kicking ass. And she takes down two of the androids, or the cyborgs, and injures another one, which takes off. He's this big hulking beast named Grishka, and he takes off with his tail tucked between his legs. And from that point onwards, Alita is on the radar of the man up in the floating city, which is called Zalem, which is where everybody aspires to get to. That's where the good life is. That's where everybody wants to go. And the guy up there calling all the shots down below is named Nova, and all of a sudden Alita's on his radar, and his agent on the ground named Vector, who employs Grishka and all these other bad seeds, and is involved with fixing the motorball circuit and all sorts of stuff. He tries to deal with Alita and dispatch her, but it turns out she has a secret past that she slowly starts to remember. And once she is back in fighting form, Nova and Vector and Grishka and all the others may have bitten off more than they can chew. The movie was fantastic. The story is amazing. The effects were awesome. Alita, for being a CGI cyborg, I'm quite smitten with her. I thought she was so adorable, and also fantastic in laying beatdowns too. So it was a very violent movie, very beautiful movie, and I just enjoyed every single minute of it. And they left it wide open for a sequel too. So I really hope they follow up with something else after this. Next up, Jimmer and I recently finished playing this Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle. The story behind this one is there's a young girl who's kind of like this inventor, and she has this little robot named Beepo that's kind of like her assistant, and she's developing this helmet type thing that is supposed to cure energy shortage type situations. As she leaves the room one time, the Rabbids in their time traveling washing machine show up and grab this helmet, and it combines two things together. So they put it on, they start messing with it. So then this young inventor is a huge Mario Brothers fan, so she's got Mario stuff all over her room. So as they do this, it's kind of merging Mario and Rabbids together, and we end up with this RPG style game called Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle. And you're tasked with using Mario, Peach, Yoshi, and then also a number of Rabbids that are dressed up as these Mario heroes. You must chase down the Rabbid who is wearing the helmet in this new world, and bring him to heal and save the universe, or the world, or whatever it is. And it's I don't normally go for the RPG style games. I find them kind of slow and dull and stuff, but I do like to play one every once in a while, and this one is awesome. It's a beautiful game. It's the graphics are amazing. It's funny, and it's quite challenging as well. So I found that really good. So definitely worth a play. Next up, Game Boy Advance. I found this one for cheap at GameCycle. It's called Galidor, Defenders of the Outer Dimension. Apparently it was a live action show back in the 90s on YTV here in Canada and Fox Kids in the States. And it follows the adventures of a teenager named Nick Bluetooth. Him and his friend get involved in some sort of alien situation. They have a ship and they go into space, and they go to this outer dimension and deal with this alien overlord named Gorm, who plans on taking over, I think, probably everything. And they're in this struggle to this fight to stop him. So in this Game Boy version of the show, Nick and his friends are in space, traveling through space, and they all get split up. So then you must take Nick and visit these different worlds, and on each one, travel through the world, save one of your friends who's located on that world, and defeat the end boss. And then in the end, you fight Gorm in just one big boss battle. And the game itself, I really like the story, I really like the graphics, but the gameplay on this game was terrible. Like, the controls were so wonky. At one point, I was about halfway through the game, and I was so close to quitting and just putting it away. But then I kept at it, and I made a big breakthrough on one level, and then from there, things just seemed to roll on, and I eventually finished it. So I'm glad I did. But it would have been a pretty good game if it wasn't for the controls. They were just, you get used to them, but they're still not right. It complicates the game way more than it should be. A game should be hard because the game's hard. It shouldn't be hard because you have to adjust to shitty controls, and that's kind of what this game was like. So it's too bad because, like I said, I think it could have been an easy, solid 8 rating for a game, but because of the controls, I give it like a 5 out of 10. It's just it just suffers in that category so badly that it kind of ruins the experience to a heavy enough extent. So next up, a couple of CDs. Megadeth Cryptic Writings. This is their 7th studio album that was released in 1997. It was 2 albums after probably their biggest album, Countdown to Extinction, which was released in the early 90s when I was in high school, and I was like, whoa. Now that Countdown to Extinction album, kind of like Metallica's shift from early thrash to more metal, Countdown for Megadeth was that same kind of thing, except they still sounded really good. Like Metallica kind of went downhill after that, but Megadeth never lost their edge, and they still sounded great. Their music changed a little bit, and it continued for Euthanasia, which was the one that came right after Countdown, and then it continued still on Cryptic Writings. There was a couple of songs that was very reminiscent of their earlier thrash kind of roots. And then a number of more metal type songs, and then there were even a couple songs that had they were a little bit slower with more like funky kind of groovy kind of feels to them with the bass lines and the stuff, and but either way, it's like with every Megadeth CD I listen to, it's solid from song 1 to song usually 8, 9, 10, or 11, and it's just this one's no exception. It was a delight to listen to, and yeah, my favorite songs on it are Trust, Almost Honest, and She-Wolf is really good, Vortex is really good, but I'll Get Even is probably my most favorite on this album. It's kind of one of the weird, funky, groovy kind of ones, and it's so good. I listen to it over and over and over as I do. Next up, Bob Seger's Greatest Hits. It's funny because earlier last week I was listening to one of the morning radio stations here, the early morning guys, and they were talking about dad rock. And the first thing I heard when I thought about dad rock is like Bob Seger was the first band that came up, and they mentioned him as well. And it's like just things you remember your dad listening to that's kind of cheesy but also really good. Not cheesy, but not like Bob Seger is the type of rock and roll that's like safe. It's the type of rock and roll you can picture 2 young kids in the American Midwest falling in love to over a long hot summer while they go down to the creek and play in the water and get ice cream afterwards, right? It's that kind of wholesome rock and roll. Not wholesome, but like safe. Like I said, safe. And I mean, how many times you've been at a wedding and old time rock and roll comes on and you see all the grandmas get up and start shaking a leg, right? Like that's the kind of music it is. Not that that's bad. It's amazing. This CD is really good, but that's the kind of rock that it is. So there's almost too many good songs on this CD to really mention, but a lot of them I knew, and a lot of them that I knew are my favorites on the CD. But there's a couple of new ones I wasn't aware of. Roll Me Away was a newer one for me. It's an old song, but for me, having heard it, I don't think I'd heard that one before. It was one of my favorites. Night Moves, of course. You'll Accompany Me was another newer one to me, which I really liked. Hollywood Nights is amazing. And my favorite, though, was The Fire Inside, which is one I've known for a long, long time. And the more I listen to it now, I love every minute of it. It was kind of like I'll Get Even with Megadeth. The Fire Inside for Bob Seger was the one I just pounded it, and even at work I was like putting it on YouTube and listening to it at work. It was so good. And then one of the other ones too is it's a Chuck Berry cover of C'est La Vie, which if you'll remember in Pulp Fiction when Uma and John Travolta do their dance at the diner or whatever, that's the song. So they do a cover of that song and it's really cool. So yeah, I'm so glad. I've been wanting to get this for like years, and then I finally got it a few months ago and have been listening to it pretty steady since. So pretty fantastic. And yeah, I thought I had some other stuff, but I guess that's it. I tricked myself. I psyched myself out. Anyways, so that's all for now. I will be back, I'm sure, soon enough with more stuff. Although the Christmas time frame usually gets pretty hairy around here with all of the events and stuff going on and all that. So we're usually here, but we're usually focused on other stuff rather than all the cool stuff and immature stuff I normally get up to. So, but I will try and be back as soon as I can with that and probably more. And until then, have a great rest of the week.